college football. Some really great games in the SEC and the ACC this weekend. So let's take a look at the whole picture of college football with James.
And this is the TaxSlayer Gator Bowl Drive to Selection presented by Toyota. Each week we go through the past weekend of games in college football, and we preview the next week as it pertains and relates to the TaxSlayer Gator Bowl played here December 29th at noon. I was about to say the stadium, but the name feels like it always changes. But just know it's in Jacksonville. Big weekend. Very exciting. A lot of stuff started. Kicked off on Friday. Well, actually, really kicked off on Thursday, all the way through. We'll talk about the ones that pertain to us first, but as was announced, we're partnered with Gator Bowl Charities, and Gator Bowl Charities is partnered with Dreams Come True. And I don't know if you watched it or not, but apparently we all made ABC.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks to you, it was fantastic and really made a young person's dream come true.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. Got a chance to hear about Jack being able to watch it live. We were all shocked. I actually had to step away from my son's football game. I got a little choked up. I didn't want people to think. I told him I bit into a jalapeno pepper with my nachos, so my eyes got a little teary. But it was cool. Little clarification: Jack is not sitting on the sideline during the game. That does not exist at Florida State. I had people asking, how can you get this? But Jack will get a chance to have a great time. Appreciate everybody who came through to make that. And also let people know that this is more than just a game. It's about community involvement. It's about helping people out. That's one of the reasons why I'm glad I got a chance to come on board. And I appreciate you guys for everything that you guys are doing for the community.
Well, it's what we're really trying to talk about, really sometimes more than the game itself, because that happens the month of December, but all the work in all the other months is really focused on community efforts to make dreams come true for people, but also to be worthwhile, be a participant, and be a worthy partner in everything that's going on within the city of Jacksonville.
Oh, that's cool. The cool thing is Jack's going to get a chance to watch a primetime game because Florida State did what they were supposed to do. Duke did what they were supposed to do. So we can start off by even just kicking it off with that. Florida State, Syracuse, blowout, look dominant. I think, because again, I've been stealing your 7-3-2 model and been using it like it's my own. I would count this as Florida State showing that this is one of their 7. They still haven't played perfect. Did you get a chance to watch that game?
I sure did. And really, it was a great week to watch college football from start to finish. And so a lot of teams worked their way in. You know, Notre Dame had a huge win against Southern Cal, even though they can't come here. That puts them in a good spot, perhaps not the New Year's Day 6, but certainly in the bowls, at the premium bowls at our level. But, you know, Miami had a tough time. That was a tough loss. North Carolina showed that it's, you know, probably deserving of a New Year's Day 6 bowl game. And again, those teams don't play each other. FSU, North Carolina, and Louisville don't play each other. While Louisville stumbled, that was a huge loss for them, but good for Pittsburgh to show that they're not giving up on a season that had not worked out so well this year.
And that's the cool thing. Going into the week, there's a controversy of what will happen if 3 ACC teams remain undefeated. And now there's not as much controversy right now unless North Carolina stumbles, Florida State stumbles, but what it's looking like, they won't. But still some pretty good games for Louisville to be able to keep themselves in it, which still makes the conference exciting to be able to watch. North Carolina still has some pretty tough matchups going down the stretch, and Florida State, you never know what could happen with Miami, but Miami is one of those key things where the coaching cliche, don't let one loss become 2. Looks like they let one loss become 2 because they definitely did not look prepared for Carolina, but now can't let 2 losses become 3. They're coming up against a very well coached and trending in the right direction Clemson team. Talk about what your thoughts are with that Clemson-Miami matchup and how it relates to us.
You know, it'll really be telling. Again, Miami started off okay against North Carolina last week, but it was good to see Carolina kind of bounce back. And Tez Walker certainly had a great game in his first game back. Yes. I think everybody was happy to see him get to play, but this is a game that's really going to be important for Clemson for their aspirations. I know they still have aspirations to run the table. Miami would be a tough place to play, and we'll just see how young people respond. But we know Miami's got a dynamic quarterback that can make things happen. Playing at home would have to be an advantage, you would think. And so I think that'll be a game that everybody will be watching. You got two really pivotal games in the ACC, Duke at FSU, but also the Clemson-Miami game is going to be telling.
One thing you can't do is turn the ball over.
That's right.
Turnovers, it doesn't matter how many yards you produce. And Miami, the last two games, has done a pretty poor job of protecting the football.
Right.
That's what really conquered the giant of Louisville going into Pittsburgh, which absolutely nobody saw that one coming. Louisville outgained, out time of possession them. I think had less penalties. There was a lot of things that Louisville did right, except for they had 3 turnovers. What does that Louisville loss really do for them? And now it's looking pretty good for the Gator Bowl for them to come down this way.
Yeah, they've got a big matchup with Duke next week. So Duke's got 2 pretty big games back to back, but it sort of knocked them out of the New Year's Day 6 competition in my mind, pulled them down to the premium bowls, the 3 premium bowls in the ACC. So time will tell, but James, it just shows, and you know this better than anybody, if you don't bring your A game every week, you're going to be susceptible to an upset. And I think that's what happened to Louisville, coming off an emotional win. They just didn't really have all the juice they needed to beat a Pittsburgh team. It was bad weather, kind of a sloppy field, and Pittsburgh, to their credit, really played really hard and won the game.
Now, there was something that we were talking about right before we started this. How do we select the ACC opponent? And you're talking about it's wins and they have to be in a certain win bracket. So could you explain that a little bit?
There's a premium pool. The ACC is very prescriptive in the contract. Their champion, if they're playing in the top 4 for the college football playoff, then they have to send somebody to the Orange Bowl to represent the ACC. And if you took things now, Florida State would feed up into the Final 4, and then North Carolina would go to the Orange Bowl. After that, Tampa could have a pick among the next ACC team if there's a Big Ten team in the Orange Bowl. It's kind of complicated. But once you fill that, then that leaves probably 4 or 5 other teams that would be in our premium pool, which is all based on number of wins. So they're going to rank the 9-win teams over the 8, over the 7, and you've got to be within a certain amount, but it depends on how many teams are in that premium pool, which fill our game, Orlando, and San Diego. So we probably would not drop below, right now, FSU and North Carolina. They're predicted to play in the New Year's Day Bowls or the college football playoff. But then you've got Clemson, Duke, Miami, Louisville, Notre Dame, who can't come here, still in the mix for our game, but it's very prescriptive, whereas in the SEC, it's just what's the best matchup. So it doesn't, I know the SEC wants to take the teams with the most wins, put them in the better bowls than those that don't have as many wins. So very prescriptive in the ACC, kind of just a best matchup scenario for the SEC team.
So good segue into the SEC. Georgia, Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt came out swinging, gave them the best punch as early as they could, but Georgia showing that they're one of the more talented teams in the nation, came back on top of that. What is a Georgia Vandy game? Because is it just one of those games where they're just like, oh, this Vandy, we beat them in our sleep?
If you have talented, Vandy's always usually had talented receivers and talented skill people. They just don't really have it in the trenches with the bigs. But Jay Cutler was there. When Cutler played at Vandy, they cut a lot of people up because they had a good quarterback and a good receiver. But I think in that case, Vandy popped. Georgia made a mistake back in the defensive backfield. But, it's just one of those things where a home team, you give them a chance to breathe. I think the next possession, Georgia fumbled. So a lot of things, you have to endure adversity. And again, it gets back to, they've got young men that are trying just as hard as you do. So you can't ever think you're going to waltz in someplace and just win to show up because you've got a G on your helmet or what have you. So it just shows you've got to be at your best every week. And sometimes you're not going to be at your best, but you play good enough to win. So I think it's just a toss-up sometimes. Whenever you go on the road, you better watch out, just like Pitt last week.
LSU showing that they have one of the most dynamic, explosive offenses in the nation. But there's also two nail biters. Alabama had a close one, and then as you call it, you didn't call it that, but you described it as this, the battle to stay bowl eligible between Florida and South Carolina. SEC, I can see that it means more thing going on a little bit with them, but a lot of competition when it came to that. So kind of as it shakes, what do you think the SEC is looking like?
Well, I think the big game this week is going to be Tennessee at Alabama. The loser of that game, especially on the east side, if Tennessee loses that game, that gives them 2 losses. So it kind of slows their trend towards Atlanta. Of course, they play Georgia at the end of the season. For Alabama, they could still go with 1 loss in the conference. They're 4-0. Alabama, they've already got the head-to-head win over Ole Miss, which is the next team competing. So this game, if LSU wins this game, they're in the driver's seat. If Alabama wins the game, then they've got a little cushion there. So the Tennessee and Alabama game will certainly highlight things as far as at the top of both sides. Alabama still got to play LSU. It's a big game for Tennessee on the east because a loss there provides a little separation in the east side there. So Alabama will be favored. You've got Ole Miss at Auburn. That'll be the night game on TV. I think, Ole Miss will be favored to win at that game, but it's kind of Hugh Freeze dynamics going to play into that game, so there'll be a little extra excitement there. A game we'll watch too is South Carolina at Missouri. Can South Carolina bounce back? Can Missouri keep going after an emotional win at Kentucky? So a lot of things, but all the eyes of the country will be on in Tuscaloosa to watch that annual Tennessee-Alabama game.
It's always good to have good matchups that can determine what the conference outcome is later in the season. You don't want it automatically just done. It's not good for ratings. But moving forward, let's talk about what we got here, see if anything changes on the board. Looks like it's easier this week to tell because we got a little darker marker right here. So Athlon, I guess they went back. I think they had this before, Miami versus Ole Miss.
Right.
But 247, Miami versus Missouri.
Yeah.
That could be a very explosive matchup. Could be a lot of points scored. It'll wake people up for a noon kick.
Yeah. Well, you've got some common opponents among the 7 outlets that we track. Miami's a frequent member up there. Louisville, they're frequent, so they're probably dominating the picks right now. On the SEC side, Missouri with their win over Kentucky, they kind of entered the picture. Tennessee's a popular pick, Ole Miss. So any way you slice it, there's going to be a great matchup here on game day, and we're really excited about the way that things are really working out right now. But a lot of positive things, and we just know we're going to have a great game.
So as it looks, as it stands today, the 2 teams out of the conference that are looking for that we think would be in the college football playoff will be FSU and Georgia. A New Year's Day 6 Bowl, this thing went from kind of full on one side to now, then there were 2. North Carolina and Bama are still looking for that. I think LSU, if they keep playing the way they're playing, could, but that depends on what they do against Bama.
That's right.
And right now, in the hunt, on the ACC side, is Clemson, Duke, Miami, and Louisville, and because Notre Dame can't be with us. And then on the SEC side, you've got Kentucky, Missouri, UF, UT, LSU, Ole Miss, and Texas A&M. But probably after this weekend, we'll probably see some more people drop off. So what games are you watching this weekend?
Well, I'm going to be really focused on the Duke-FSU game since that's 2 teams that have a chance to play each other again. I know you mentioned North Carolina, but a big game for Duke because as mentioned, next week they play Louisville as well. A lot of eyes in Alabama, in Missouri, Auburn, and also Clemson at Miami. That's going to be a very interesting game to watch. So a lot of games that affect really the teams that are in the hunt or the New Year's Day 6 game. So we'll see how things flesh out there.
All right. Good weekend coming up for college football overall. Actually, just been a really good, exciting season in general. Should bowl to be even more exciting next year as the playoff expands. But as of right now, it's great. It's also always great with my alma maters in it. But I'm at Big Game James _36. This is Greg McGarity, and this is the TaxSlayer Gator Bowl Drive to Selection presented by Toyota. We'll see you guys next week.
Hey, we're back for another off the field update. I am solo this week. Katie is homesick, so you just get to hear from me this week. I have a few new things to talk about. One is a longtime event of Gator Bowl charities. It is called the Little Gator Bowl. It is the Greater Jacksonville Pop Warner City Championships that we host right here at the stadium. It's every year. It's the day after Florida, Georgia. So this year, Sunday, October 29th, and it is an early morning for us following all the Florida, Georgia festivities. We've got games kicking off at 8:30 and running throughout the day. The last game kicks off at 3:30. So we get to see anywhere from 6-year-olds to 12-year-olds compete. 5 city champions will be crowned on the field, and they actually get some championship rings, and it's just a really fun day. So we're excited to be hosting that. It is a public event, so if you are free that Sunday, it's probably going to be a beautiful day. I'm channeling that. Stop by the stadium, enter in the East Club gates. It's $5 to enter, and come support these little kids as they get to play in the stadium. It's a really memorable day for them. The other two things I want to note this week are 2 fundraising campaigns that we have for Gator Bowl charities. So every year, you're probably used to hearing us talk about the Send a Child to the Game program presented by ViStar Credit Union. We every year send about 1,200 kids to the TaxSlayer Gator Bowl at no cost to them from various organizations throughout Northeast Florida. They get transported here, whether that's a bus or we provide a parking pass. They get a pregame meal thanks to Chick-fil-A. They get a commemorative t-shirt and then obviously get to go to the game. So that's always a really fun day for them. Once again, they're making memories that will last a lifetime on game day. Additionally to that, we started a few years ago adding a high school takeover program to that presented by ITG Next. So in addition to those 1,200 kids, we bring about 500 high school student athletes from across all of Northeast Florida, Southeast Georgia to the game. Once again, at no cost to them. They get a pregame meal. They get their bus down here. So we're fundraising for both of those. So we can send over 1,500 kids to the game. We're going to put links in the email below so you guys can take a look if you want to donate to support that. It is $75 to provide one child's experience. And if you want to provide a whole bus of students, it is $3,000 to provide 40 experiences. So once again, we'll have a link down there for that. We've got a lot going on. Fall is picking up, and we look forward to seeing you next week.